Okay, great. Hello to everybody that's coming in. We're just going to give it a few seconds for people to all arrive in the room before we get started. Okay. Since we are getting started a little late, I'm gonna kick things off, and I'm sure there will be some late arrivals joining us from all around the world. Hi, everybody. My name is Clay Pruitt. I am the ShortFest Forum producer, and I'm thrilled to be able to present this incredible lineup of ShortFest programming for people despite the world circumstances, and hopefully we're welcoming several of you from all around the world. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'm thrilled that this particular panel came together. It is such a cool topic with some really great voices. I am not an animator myself, but I very well may change direction after this because I'm sure I'm going to be incredibly inspired. So I want to say before we kick things off, on behalf of the festival, we want to acknowledge the pain and anger that we are all feeling right now, not just because of the most recent events that we've witnessed, but also about the long-standing history of injustice and inequality. We stand with Black Lives Matter, and we are committed to working together to move our community, our country, and the world closer to unity, understanding, and inclusivity. Just one thing to note before we get going, we are utilizing the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. So if you have any questions for these panelists, please put the questions there. We will get to those probably towards the end of the discussion. And I do want to mention that this session is being recorded for future use. And without any further ado, I'd like to turn things over to our wonderful moderator for this panel, Ramin Zahed.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. My name is Ramin Zahed. I'm the editor-in-chief of Animation Magazine, and I'm very thrilled and honored to be moderating this wonderful panel. We have 7 fantastic, talented, and artistic individuals here with us who are going to share their wisdom and their experience with you about how to get into the world of animation and how to kind of further your career and break into the business. So we only have an hour, so without further ado, I'm going to ask these wonderful ladies to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about how they got into animation and what they're working on now, so we get to know them better. I guess we can start with whoever is next to me. Meta, is that you?
Yeah, you're next to me on my as well, so that's perfect. Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Meta Norkier. I work over at Boom Studios, which is a production company and comic book publisher. We have a first look deal on the feature side with 20th Century Studios, formerly known as Fox Studios. And then on the TV side, we just closed a first look deal with Netflix. So it's very exciting. I'm from Denmark, so I moved to the United States about 6 years ago and found the job at Boom through my grad program that I was doing at the time, and started as an assistant, worked my way up to becoming a creative executive. And what that basically, just in a nutshell, what that means is that I'm trying to adapt our comic book titles into features and TV shows. And we're working a lot in the animation space, which I'm personally really excited about, given that it truly is the golden age of animation right now. But yeah, that's it. That's me in a nutshell.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Whitney, I guess you're next.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Whitney Lovell. I am a producer currently working at Titmouse, small animation company in Hollywood. I'm currently producing a new adult primetime style series comedy that's going to be homed at Netflix. And sort of my background is in, adult comedy. I cut my teeth on 4 seasons of Robot Chicken at Stupid Buddy Studios. So my background is primarily in stop motion, but this is sort of my first foray into 2D animation, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm very just happy to be here and speaking with everybody and be amongst so many like amazing, talented people in the industry. This is great.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Monique, you're next.
Okay. Yes. So my name is Monique. I am the co-founder of Diverse Tunes, which is a traveling panel series just highlighting the need for diversity in the animation industry. I also host a podcast called Simple Robotics, the podcast, where I do film reviews. I have interviews with coworkers and friends talking about animated films. And professionally, my 9 to 5 is I'm a production assistant on a feature film at Netflix Animation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Next up, I guess it's Sichi.
Hi, my name is Sichi Song. I'm a filmmaker, animator too. I come from China, and then I went to CalArts about 5 years ago to study animation. And then since then, I've been working in feature films and TV films, and I made several short films myself. Most of them are stop motion animation. Actually, I was one of the filmmakers from last year's Palm Springs ShortFest. It was one of my best festival experience to go to, and I met like so many great short filmmakers. And yeah, so congratulations to everyone.
And you nominated for an Oscar too. Oscar.
Yes, it was nominated for Oscar in this February, and then it was also one of my favorite festival experience too. So good luck to everyone and all the filmmakers here too. Hope to see you in next year's Oscar too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Tamika, are you next?
I guess so. Hello, everybody. I'm Tanika Stotts. I'm a animation writer. I'm also a Eisner-winning, Ignatz-winning creator of Elements Fire, a comic anthology by creators of color. I was just finishing up on Pony Life for Hasbro, which is a My Little Pony spinoff. And I have credits on Craig of the Creek, which is now Emmy nominated, as well as Steven Universe Future.
Awesome. What a great cast here. I guess we can kick things off by maybe you all talking about what
did we get
Ramin, I think we're missing Erica.
Oh, Erica, I'm so sorry.
No worries, it's all good.
I'm sorry, I didn't see
It's all good. Hi, I'm Erica Chan. I am the Director of Marketing at G-Kids Films. G-Kids is an independent film distributor based mostly out of New York. I myself am not an animator, but I did study film and have always been a lifelong fan of animation and anime in specific. So very excited to be here.
Thank you for Promare, waiting for Lupin the First.
Thank you.
We're all fans of G-Kids here, so thank you for all the great work you guys do. Basically, I guess we can start things off by maybe you all talking about the animation landscape in 2020 and what kind of advice would you give people who are actually making shorts right now and they want to kind of expand their career? Whoever is willing to share. I have Sichi next to me if you want to start.
Okay, yeah, well, for me, like I'm also a starter too. I am like a short filmmaker myself. But I think like it's very great to, continue to do what you do. Even like, I think for me, as a struggle as a student filmmaker, that, you always want to know like how your career can advance in the future after you get out of school, because you'll be making short by yourself or with a small team, and then going to the industry is a totally different filmmaking ways of making films, which is like you have working with bigger teams and much larger budget. I think for me, both of them are great experience. I have been worked with both, and then for me, like working with a bigger production with great talents in the industry, it's a great experience for you to know about the filmmaking, how to work with a team. But working with making short films is also a big challenge too. Like you have to work with smaller budget and smaller team, and then there are lots of your vision. You can make that happen because of that. But also, I think that's the great thing about this challenge. It can force yourself to find smart ways to do it, to make films that it can also accomplish your vision, but also it work with the budget you have. So I think like maybe that experience kind of helped me to get through this quarantine time too. I'm actually making a mini series right now that I just started to shoot film, like just start shooting at the beginning of March, and then we have to stop because of the COVID situation. I have to stay home for like 2 months to like pause the production, which was a pretty big hit for me because we've been preparing this pre-production for almost a year, and then that's the time we make the film. It was really hard for me to adapt. And then I think like, thinking about the previous time when I was making sure with a smaller team, I kind of like have to adapt myself into that situation before, and then find a smarter way to work with a smaller team, which keep us all safe, but also continue the production. So I think just, finding ways to accomplish your vision is just the most important thing. It doesn't matter if it's short or feature ideas, like just make use of your creative and find smarter ways to make your film under this circumstance. So that would be my advice. Just, use your creative to continue to make your film. Yeah.
Tanika, you're next, I guess, on the little grid. Would you like?
Well, I don't really have a whole lot of experience with shorts yet, since I've only been creating for 11-minute to 22-minute feature.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that learning production has been pretty important for me as far as from sound and also voice, and also just being able to make friends with my storyboarders who want to continue making things with me to pitch further as part of the process of going to studios and such. So that's pretty much my insight. Don't be a jerk.
Tanika, how did you get your break in the business?
Rebecca Sugar tapped me on the shoulder. Personally, it was kind of not one of the things where I was ever looking to be in animation at first. I never even thought it was a realm that was open for me. I actually was doing a webcomic called Love Circuits, and that kind of led into Deja Brew, which then got Eisner nominated, and I just kept making webcomics because I wanted to see representation on a different scale, especially an LGBTQ scale that isn't denoted by a white narrative lens that always tends to put us in a little smaller box. So the freedom that I had through making webcomics and through making published comics, such as anthologies that I presented for other people as a platform, it just kind of continued to grow my voice as a story creator and a writer, being able to let my imagination go completely. And then I ended up at the Cartoon Network for quite a while, and it was amazing. It's still amazing, and I'm still a little freaked out that I'm here, but thank you for having me.
Great to have you. Thank you so much. Erica, maybe you can talk a little bit about at G Kids. I remember a couple of years ago, and last year also, you did present a collection of shorts at the Animationist Film, and you guys are very active with the festival in New York also. So how do you go about finding these shorts, and how do you promote them?
So there is a variety of different ways, but I think the most important way really is just making sure that you have established yourself online and have carved out a space online for yourself. Mm-hmm. Lately, whenever I go online, it's really all about, do you have a presence on Twitter? And that doesn't mean, do you have followers on Twitter? It's just, is there a way that someone can look you up and find your work and find what your sort of creative vision is all about? Making sure that, if you are promoting your short film, do you have stills and shots and information about it readily available online? More and more, I see a lot of people turning towards Twitter and Instagram as ways to find new works and new creators. So it's really all about making sure that you have something out there, not just Twitter and Instagram, but also a website so people know how to find you and know how to contact you. That's really so important these days, especially with so much activity now online. And you know, film distributors now are turning more and more towards virtual screenings and virtual events. And it's so important to have your online presence firmly placed out there.
Awesome. Very cool. That's really good advice. Monique, what is your take on the whole shorts business and the animation landscape as a whole in 2020?
I think I think with the first film festival I actually checked out online virtually has been Annecy.
Mhm.
And I think that it's going to make things more accessible for people who normally can't attend those things. And I personally, this was going to be the year I started to make a short since I graduated college. And for me, just being able to attend this and seeing panels and conversations and things being had, I don't think that if we were living our normal lives, I would have had access to a lot of these resources, because I would have just been so caught up in the hustle and bustle. I'm from New York. I live in New York. I think that with everything also being so virtual, it is allowing people to connect with people that they also maybe would have had a harder time to connect with. For instance, again, like live tweeting festivals, you can just browse the hashtag and now you're connecting with other people who are also watching or participating. I think this is causing us to become an even tighter community. Like this opportunity wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the circumstances that we're under. And I am getting to see and learn about all of you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Meta, how about you? Tell us about how you got into the business and what's your take on the 2020 scene?
Yeah, I mean, I got into the business because I was fortunate enough to go to film school. And I know that's not an opportunity that everybody gets to have. So I'm very grateful for having that, especially coming from abroad, coming from Denmark. And that program, I mean, I did the START program at USC, which was wonderful. And through all my internships, that kind of led me to my final job where I started as an assistant and now as a creative exec. You know, I'm so excited that I get to work in this space. I'm still learning every day. I'm by no means an expert. You know, we have great partners in animation, and I find that the nicest people across the board work in animation. So that's why I think I love it. And I think a lot of people, especially coming from my own background, I think I grew up and the first form of storytelling I got exposed to was in animation. So I think there's a deep rooted nostalgia, at least for myself, with animation and the opportunity for the kinds of stories we can tell in that space. And you know, I agree so much with what Erica said just before in terms of making sure that you have your material ready and out there and that you have a clear vision online and you have an online presence. As someone who's constantly trying to find new voices in animation, because we have a lot going on, we have a whole imprint at Boom Studios that focuses on younger readers called Kaboom, which is a wonderful imprint. But because we have that imprint, that also means a lot of that content kind of translates to the most appropriate translation is for animation and for kids animation. So I'm always trying to find creators and new voices that really can speak to a specific experience or have a unique vision. So it's just going back to Erica's point, it's so important that you have that out there and available to people like myself so I can find you and can bring you up to my collaborators at, for instance, Netflix or other animation companies. And in terms of the landscape, I think it's really exciting. Like a show I binged recently was Kipo on Netflix, Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beast, which I think is just fantastic. And I think kind of shows how I think animation is kind of opening a little bit more up to the YA space, which I find really interesting because I think you get the best of both worlds, and that you get the younger audience to focus on that as well, but you can also bring in a more mature adult audience. And I think that show does that really well. And I hope to do some of that in the project that I'm working on at Boom.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And Whitney, please tell us about how you got into the business and what you think of the whole 2020 animation land scene.
Yeah, you know, I'm feeling really grateful to just be in animation at this time, right? I think there's just so much that like we can keep moving along. You know, it was like a bit of a learning curve to sort of move our production from in-house to all working remotely, but with little impact ultimately overall. You know, I think we're all learning, you know, how to do Zoom stuff and how to keep things moving, how to, you know, communicate really when you're not in a shared space is a really big challenge. But you know, we already, you know, usually ship our animation overseas anyway. So, you know, we're sort of already used to a portion of animation happening, you know, not with us in house. But you know, I started as the receptionist at Stupid Buddy Studios, like just sort of being like, oh, we need to, you know, you need administrative support. Like, that's great. I went to, you know, theater school. I have a BFA in acting. So I kind of moved out to LA, like, you know, wanting to do acting. And I actually have had the opportunity to do some voice acting, you know, just sort of by getting my foot in the door. But I sort of worked my way up and found production and found animation. It was just such a collaborative workspace and place to work with people. So, you know, I feel like ultimately, you know, I had the privilege of running an internship program for a while at Stupid Buddy Studios, and really, you know, the sort of advice that I would give new filmmakers is to, you know, not only like have something that you want to pitch and you want to, you know, take out into the world and, you know, like others were saying, like have that online presence. But I also think like, you know, finding a niche, like when we go to film school, you kind of learn everything, right? You learn a little bit about everything. And you know, or you did, some programs could teach you, you know, a little bit more about some stuff. But when you go to film or animation school, you generally get like a big overview of like everything. And when you make a short film, you're doing everything kind of yourself, right? I think, you know, finding like something that you really can dive into and explore, like you can give you an opportunity to get your foot in the door at a production company, right? So like you can still have your own work, but being able to sort of, you know, I work with, you know, animators and storyboard artists and character designers and, you know, compositors, all of these different roles like are things that individuals have skills with, right? Because they learned it in school. But I think everybody goes straight to like, you know, wanting to be the director or something like that, especially. But most people have like this background in this greater thing. So I would encourage folks to like, you know, find something that you can really become an expert in. That gets your foot in the door. You can meet people, you know, interact with people at different studios, bounce around, you know. I think the great thing about animation is that it doesn't necessarily pigeonhole people, right? Like you could start as a character designer and then move into being a storyboard artist, and, you know, storyboard artists grow to become directors, and then that's how you can direct something. I think there's like a lot of, you know, overlap in the process where you get to learn all these different things and utilize them. And not only are you like sort of learning on the job to make your own individual work better, you're also making these contacts, meeting people you can collaborate with. So that's sort of my like, you know, thing about advice to, you know, filmmakers. And, you know, I don't have specific experience with short films necessarily, but I can see sort of that evolution happening and sort of like getting into that world that way. And I think, you know, the online community, the ability that we have to connect with people through social media, through, you know, just having websites and stuff like that, I think is a really good opportunity. You can still even do that remotely, right? When we're not necessarily in person.
Yeah. Those are all great points. Thank you so much. I guess one of the things actually that came up in the Women in Animation panel at Annecy was the fact that a lot of studios are signaling that they are looking for great new projects, new voices that haven't been heard before, people of color and women and LGBTQ community. What is your take on that? Do you find that there are more opportunities available now, and is it a good time, or are they just lip service?
I feel there are more art opportunities, but not necessarily writing opportunities still. I still feel that a lot of studios depend on their older Rolodexes of calling in certain veterans, and that's not to dismiss them at any point in time. I very much so recognize those veterans, and I appreciate them because they've taught me a lot since I've got here. But I'm still in the same rooms that are 80% white, and I'm also still in the rooms where I'm still the only person of color. And sometimes if I do speak up, I have a cacophony of no's that tell me that my experiences are not correct versus their animation experience. So I would say that change is happening. It's still small, and there's still a lot of work to be put in as far as the background and the foreground is concerned, as far as how we're presenting these opportunities. When you're making it so that someone still is included but feels completely othered by the entire experience, that's not necessarily a positive, and therefore it can still lead to debilitating forms of imposter syndrome, or just someone that might not have the confidence or the self-esteem to kind of overcome it. I certainly have those things, which is probably while I'm still here, but I still observe a lot that could have beneficial influences in the future that probably help it become a little bit easier for those of other backgrounds who are coming into animation.
That's really a good point. Yeah. Anyone else have a similar experience or comment on this subject?
Yeah, I want to add that, in recent weeks, I've seen a lot of like studios, calling and saying that, yeah, they're standing in solidarity. The different creative teams saying, yeah, they want to have diverse stories, they're seeking diverse creatives, but in actuality, it's like everyone's not really changing their approach to finding talent. And you can't continuously go to the same art schools and film schools and then complain that you're not finding the type of people to tell these diverse stories. You have to step beyond those usual sources. So maybe start checking out smaller film festivals and see the people that are submitting their projects to that. Start going to maybe state schools, community colleges, and really scouting those type of endeavors, and then you will start to find people, because it's not a lack of artists out there, and it's not a lack of qualified people, but you have to change your approach, really. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of an initiative on that front coming from like studios.
Great point.
Yeah, I think I can totally agree. Like, I think lots of people think like the mainstream doesn't have enough content, original content or diverse, but if you go to film festivals, I never feel that way, because in film festivals, like the creators, the filmmakers, they come from anywhere, and then they come from like any kind of color or race or LGBTQ. Like they're actually more content that what the mainstream is streaming, and then but the reason they are in indie film festival is because they didn't have enough support or like from the bigger studios to support their projects, that most of them just make it themselves. So maybe that's a reason, because it's diverse, they have more control of the project they want to make. And then if the big studio have enough attention to the film festival, like short filmmakers, they probably will find like way more diverse voices than they are looking right now. It's not that we don't have enough. It's just they're looking for the wrong direction. Yeah.
Did having your short screen at festivals, and then of course the Oscar nomination, did you get calls from studios and traditional feature or even TV shows, studio makers, animation makers, to like come on board, or did you have to like reach out? What was that like for you?
I think definitely like showing at the film festivals, I've seen there are definitely like great many animation production companies or like studios. They're looking for new voices. I've met like executives from several other studios that approached me, like asked me if I have any ideas of any future project they would love to hear it, and then help me to produce it. So definitely like it's a great way to festival is a great way to show your talent and show your unique voice. And that's why I think I encourage everyone, just keep making what you want to make, and people will see your talent and you'll find your own audience.
That's great. Anyone else want to pipe in about this? The importance of
Yeah.
diversity and how you find it.
Well, I think, you know, there's an organization I've been working with for the past year or so called Film to Future. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but it is a local program here in LA. They're hoping to expand across the United States. But the program was founded by Rachel Miller, and it's essentially a 3-week intensive where high school kids from lower income backgrounds and homes can come and basically learn the process of filmmaking. They get film equipment to basically film, edit, correct sound, all that stuff, and they otherwise wouldn't really have an opportunity to get exposed to that. And the program hopes to place all their students, there's about 25 in every summer program, that they then hope to place in paid internships, and also hopefully at times can get paid jobs out of it. And the kids get exposed to executives such as myself and people from all different backgrounds who can kind of help them understand the industry and how there's not one path into it, and that a lot of kids will be told, or you know, when I was coming out of grad school, I was told you have to go to an agency in order to work in the industry or to even get a job as an assistant. I didn't end up going to an agency and I still got in, but that was also because I had grad school. So a program like Film to Future is really affording an opportunity for kids and helping them have a direct pipeline to the industry and even college. So I just wanted to announce that in case there's anybody out there. They have a website called film2future.com. I highly recommend people checking it out. I'm also trying to spread the word for like studio executives and that kind of thing, so they can kind of try to support that next generation that will hopefully help diversify the pool of executives that are behind the scenes and are then going to be responsible for finding new talent that hopefully reflects the talent that's out there.
So thank you for sharing that. That's a great tip. Anyone else want to talk about this subject? Whitney, how are things at Titmouse?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, Tanika really hit on something poignant in that, like, I think we continue to get, you know, more diverse artists and, you know, people working in the industry, but, you know, I think it really is like those creation stories, right? Like the inception of them, that I think like there's some, you know, there's this disconnect where, you know, people say that they want these diverse stories, but, you know, it's not necessarily their hiring isn't reflecting that. And I think that, you know, it's something that the industry as a whole, you know, entertainment, not just animation, is grappling with, right? Is just bringing in, you know, these new voices, you know, and I'm curious, like, I don't actually have a lot of experience with it, but like, I'd love to know what other panelists even think about, like, the solutions to those, right? Like, is it, you know, is it mentorship? Is it, you know, how do you sort of like break that barrier and bring others in? Because I think it's consistently about, like, you know, oh, these people don't have enough experience, right? They haven't been in the industry long enough, but how are you even granted that? And it's this sort of like cycle that is, you know, feeding itself with this feedback loop. And, you know, I think studios like struggle to sort of break the cycle, essentially.
I think something that's been very instrumental actually in producing change has actually been the Nickelodeon Writers Program. I know that a few other studios are starting writers programs, but I worked with head writer Jeff Trammell of Craig of the Creek, who was also born in Detroit, who dreamed of becoming an animation writer after being a professional wrestler and did not go to college for animation whatsoever, and is like the best person in my life right now as far as a mentor and a person that I look to as being another Black person in the room that makes me feel completely comfortable because I have an understanding with him when I'm pitching out certain ideas. But Nickelodeon was the writing program that got him to Los Angeles, was what got him into rooms and got him to start writing with more shows. I know that there's also the Universal Writing Program, but in general, that's just 2 programs. I know that a few other studios could probably lend to helping that area grow more. And they focus on diverse voices. They focus on your unique voice becoming something more. And I think that that is something that we could hone in on more. It definitely takes anybody, regardless of what product of your environment that you are, and gives you that step up above the rest to kind of join everybody else in this industry.
Mhm. That's a great suggestion. I think Universal has a similar program too, as you mentioned. Anyone else
I
want to
will.
comment?
I wanted to also add that animation has a very unique quality to it that, you know, makes the challenge multifaceted, where it's not just about having a writer who has a unique point of view, but also making sure that there are artists who reflect that, and also voice actors who also reflect a unique point of view. Because, you know, at the end of the day, you can have a character, you know, who is drawn in a specific way, but if you don't have the other qualities of a voice actor or a writer, you know, that representation really flattens down if you don't consider all of the different qualities to animation that create that unique quality.
And I
I'll
think,
just chime in and say really quickly, working at Cartoon Network is different than working at other studios. Cartoon Network is storyboard driven. So my job is to facilitate a premise and an outline, but then also do punch up after the storyboarders have then taken the episode and sometimes turned it into something completely different or something wildly more full of imagination. It's the collaboration and kind of the respect and the understanding that the process is something that will kind of blossom, and you need to be more open and receptive to that process. And again, with voice acting, it does come down to kind of everybody working together and pulling all of the right strings to make something magical happen. So I totally agree with you. And again, it's why I said I'm friends with all of my storyboarders, and it's something of a relationship. It's like a family that you need to build. I know some people will just write scripts and then they'll just blank out and think, it'll get made. Now I've gotten paid. But that's not the end of the journey. I'm excited about every episode that I create, and watching it air on television, reading people's good and terrible reviews of me is fine. It helps me grow as a creator, but you have to have an understanding of the art that goes into it and the time that it takes. Down to your production assistants. If you don't have that respect, you really shouldn't be in this industry.
yeah. So, Tamika, you got a question here. Ben Hansford says, Tanika, can you say more about how storyboarders help you pitch your films?
Well, first off, it's more than understanding just writing a script and leaving it down to dialogue. You need to understand your pacing, the motion, dramatic and comedic timing, the way to influence a punch. And of course, you've got your climax and your resolve. Those can all, depending on the time that you have to shove everything into, you really need to work close with that storyboarder, or you need to be very understanding of the processes that lead up to it. It's a collaboration again at heart. So the process of working directly with your storyboarder is really important. And they're more than just a storyboarder. They are a writer too, because they're also influencing what's coming out of these characters' mouths. So if you don't have that understanding, and if you can't leave your ego at the door, again, there's other places for you.
That's great. And Jumai Yusuf just sent a question. He says, I'm a live action filmmaker, but because of quarantine, I started teaching myself 3D animation using Unreal Engine and Maya. Do you think an animation skill set can help a live action career and vice versa? Especially now that everyone, live action is not happening. Who wants to comment on that? Anybody?
I think having a background in both is always helpful, because I think the thing to keep in mind is that through every experience you have as a filmmaker, I think that adds to your worldview of like storytelling. And I think that's why it's incredibly important to Explore Animation, we have a project that I can't really talk about other than we hired a director who came from live action, and we were then hoping to pair her with the right folks that have the animation background, but we decided to work with this director because she really has such a compelling story and she is an incredible filmmaker. So I do think, I certainly don't think it's a waste of time or like it won't benefit you at the end of the day, because it's ultimately just an exercise in storytelling. And I think that's going to make you better overall just as a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
I'd like to chime in that learning Unreal and Maya, I think is actually very wise. Unreal is pretty cool because it's real-time rendering. And then with Maya, you can do very simple staging and like layout, storyboards even for your live action shoots, so that hopefully when you're able to go back out and shoot your stuff, you already have like a 3D semi-realistic depiction of how to stage your stuff. And it could probably help a lot with your pre-production planning. So definitely doesn't hurt at all to learn some more stuff.
Mm-hmm. Do you recommend any kind of skill set for maybe people who have a short at the festival? They want to kind of present themselves to the industry. What kind of tactic would you recommend? You know, and what would you tell them not to do?
I actually think I want to suggest making, I say GIFs, I don't say GIF, but maybe making some of like your short film, because like who doesn't like people to share their work, and just, you know, if it could be a reaction to something and just get visibility, and then people may be like, oh, well, where did this come from, you know, and maybe you have like a hashtag, which is the title of your film in the GIF also. I think, as we've been saying, really utilizing and leveraging social media can be very helpful. Also, like this virtual background, like I found it online somewhere, but if it was a still from a short, that would have been great too, you know, like maybe creating some sort of like assets, so it's almost like getting people to promote your stuff for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
Definitely GIF, not GIF. It's not peanut butter. Just saying. I know the creator loves peanut butter, but it's GIF. The end.
Okay, because that's what I
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Just approaching it from the social media marketing side. You know, flat out GIFs work so much better than stills when you're advertising for something that is animated. It's really astounding how you can market the same movie over and over again, but you know, showcasing that animation will just, you know, do wild numbers versus just presenting it as like a still. I also wanted to add in, oh, never mind, I just lost my thought. Sorry about that.
Okay. Anyone else want to chime in?
I think for me, I would advise to just show the work that you're really very authentic from you. Like I think as a young artist, it's really easy to try to mimic what the mainstream is already have, and then try to get the jobs in the studio to just make similar work as what they already produce. But I think as a, you know, a director or producer, what they are looking for is a unique voice from you, like what you can bring to what we don't have. So I think just try to keep the authenticity of your work and show what you have, what new things you can bring to the team, not something they already have. So that's what my advice would be.
That's great. That's great. I mean, we always get these questions from people, like they say, okay, how do I present my work? You know, how do I showcase, or what do I put in my portfolio? What kind of material are studios hungry for? What is your take on that, all of you?
Originality? I mean, it's kind of where we're at right now. They're just looking for different stories from different perspectives and not just rehashing the same IP over and over again. And even when they are, they're still looking for a new generational take and a new voice that kind of will spearhead it and guide it into whatever new toy-tastic future they can package on with it. And sometimes not.
Yeah. I think they're also, a lot of the time, I think if I see a short, I'm often wondering, okay, could this be a feature, or could you rethink it and reimagine it as a series? So I think when you're thinking about approaching a short that you're putting together or writing, directing, what have you, I think it's incredibly important also to think like, okay, well, if I think about this short as a proof of concept, what could the greater world be? Because chances are, if you get a meeting somewhere because they saw your short, chances are they kind of want to know what's going on with the short and if it's available, and if the producer then could be the one to actually champion the feature version or the series. So I think use the platform of a short to basically get the core concept of a larger idea, and obviously in a shorter form. But I think just thinking ahead and thinking like, what could the feature or bigger version of this be?
And Meta, have you done that? Reached out to people because you love their short or you saw them at the festival, and how did that go? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, I'll have representatives such as managers or agents reach out to me and be like, I have this great client, they've done this and this. But oftentimes through my last couple of years of working in animation, I'm so hungry to find new voices that are being more specific with their storytelling, that doesn't feel like it's things I've seen before. And I think that's what we've talked about today, is like, you have to really go digging for it online. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I'll reach out to people all the time if I see some of their work online and try to, and then if they don't have representatives, sometimes I'll reach out to my friends who are managers or agents and be like, you know what, I think I found somebody that you should represent. Mm-hmm. So that happens all the time. And I think people are eager to find these people and these filmmakers that are out there.
Mm-hmm. Erica, do you know if G-Kids does that? Does Eric, find a short that he thinks, oh, well, maybe they will have a movie or something, or maybe I can have their movie. I can have a compilation of shorts, something like that.
Yeah, that happens all the time. It's an interesting landscape right now, specifically just because due to COVID, the theatrical world has just completely changed over the last few months. And I think what we're going to see is, the way you distribute a film is going to change a lot. And with that, I think the way films that are shorts are distributed versus the way that features are distributed have always been kind of different, just because of the length of the runtime. And someone who's paying a $12 ticket in New York City isn't going to really jump for that when that $12 ticket is paying for like a 12-minute short, which has always kind of affected the economics of theatrical distribution. But now that a lot of theaters have currently shifted over to this virtual model, I think that is also going to affect the future of the way shorts are distributed, along with how the regular movies are distributed. So I think we're bound to see some changes. Shorts, I think G-Kids, we've always wondered how to best distribute those, just because the economics haven't always made the most sense for, okay, I'll put this one short on a DVD, etc. But I think with this new virtual model, there's a lot of exciting opportunities ahead.
Excellent. And as far as, some in the past, people used to say, hang on, don't put your stuff on the web. You want to save it for the festivals and then make it available for everyone to see. What is the current thinking now? If a short filmmaker is trying to make it in the world, do they wait for a while and present it to the festivals initially and then put it online for free? Or what is the right thinking right now? What is it?
I've personally seen my friends pitching their animation, their shorts on Kickstarter and garnering quite a crowd for it, or just a following, before putting it on the festival circuit and then presenting it for free on various websites, their own websites. So I feel like everything is changing in the way of how you must go about presenting your work, and how you have many more avenues for garnering that kind of support and outreach with your film.
Yeah, so many festivals, like, that's just a part of their rules, is that you can't put your short out there. So I think an alternative is if you just have like a teaser, something even shorter, and you just say, oh, it's going to be at this festival if you want to see it, you know, and you just keep changing the festival it's going to be premiering at or displayed at. But yeah, you kind of just, if you want your stuff to be in festivals, you have to follow the guidelines until you can premiere it on your own website whenever you're done with the circuits.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also think there's oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to add on that it's not just the finished product that's important, but it's also all of the behind the scenes material, all of the pre-production and the development materials that you have that are useful marketing assets. You know, really invite people into your own studio and show them all of your concept art and, you know, even little moments of creation. I think Leica does a really great job on their TikTok channel, just showing a lot of the behind the scenes action. And that can really help you, you know, share your creative vision to an audience, but also it's a way to promote something where you have 12 minutes of something, but you can't, you know, just drop all 12 minutes of it. But you can always supplement that with everything that has led up to that 12 minutes.
That's great advice. Anyone else? Oh, we got one question now. Anna Baumgarten says, what advice would you give a first-time animation writer pitching a series? Would pitching it with a storyboard artist help the pitch?
I'll answer yes. It's great to have art that accompanies your drone on of writing. It's good to be able to have a concept of the world that you want to present, regardless of how it's going to be repackaged later by the animation studio. You should always be able to have your best foot forward. Even bring in music if you like and spit a few bars if you have that in your mind for what series you're presenting. Your creativity should always be at the forefront. You as a master storyteller, you're beginning the world, but somebody else has to kind of like finish concepting that and making it into a package that they can kind of visualize and go forward with, realizing if they want to, you know, green light this project. If you don't have that accessibility of particularly a storyboarder, a artist works just as well. Being able to spec or take art from them, not on just a commission base, but on a purchase base, being able to have that opportunity to send your packet even further than just you and leave an impression with that room or that studio is really important. So yes, I would say it'd be even better, because at the end of the day, then you're going to need to storyboard it anyway. Once it gets past that point, somebody's going to need to redraw many panels a lot of times to go ahead and present that further for the short possibility that you might be in line for. So it'd be better to already have that relationship established. Therefore, you have kind of like a baseline of, we are creating this together and this is how it's going to come out, versus a stranger. That's not saying that a stranger wouldn't still be just as interested in that idea, but being able to have that kind of like relationship at the forefront really creates a better opportunity for you and gives that vision just a better chance overall of making it.
Great. That's a great answer. Anyone else? I guess that's it.
I would echo. I mean, I think it's like you nailed it. I think it's definitely like about, you know, finding, I think when people are looking for animated things, they want to see it, right? Like you could have a great idea, but they're even just character designs or, you know, backgrounds, something, you know, not necessarily maybe like full boards or anything, but just being able to like see the design and see sort of how you're planning, you know, to make this come to life, I think is really key in animation.
Or take the One Punch Man approach, you know, make really bad webcomics. That's cool. I mean, it's not a bad webcomic. He just made his own webcomic. It just wasn't the scale that it grew into, but somebody saw it and was like, I actually really like this idea. Not only do I like this idea, I'm going to redo your idea for frame, scale for scale, and I'm going to make it explosive and just animatic. And, you know, that's again a relationship all within itself, of building and being able to invest someone not only into your idea but into your story and being able to make something amazing at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Very good. I think we reached the end of our panel. I want to thank everybody, Tanika, Erica, Whitney, Monique, Meta, Sichi, our wonderful forum manager, Clay, the Palm Springs Shorts Festival, everybody for being with us today. I hope you all got a lot out of it. If you want to know more about animation, you can check out animationmagazine.net. We're giving away free digital subscriptions all month long. So come on aboard and learn more. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
all so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
There are 3 more forum sessions happening tomorrow. So any attendees, definitely get on those, check them out. There's much more to learn, as always. And thank you so much to this incredible panel who've been so generous with your time. We know it's especially valuable right now. So thank you so much for giving it to us, and on a Sunday nonetheless. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.